Welcome to our discussion with the local candidates running for the General Assembly. We're joined today by Ryan Benton, who is the independent candidate for the 80th House seat that is in Portsmouth. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks for calling me.
Now, tell us a little bit about your background. I know you're a realtor and you're from Portsmouth.
I am. I'm the only homegrown candidate. I am running as an independent, but I am a realtor by trade. I've buy and sell Portsmouth every single day for the past 9 years. And I'm the only candidate who actually attended Portsmouth Public Schools themselves. And I'm excited to be running.
As you go around the district and you talk to people, which I know you do every day, what issues are important to people in Portsmouth?
You know, Portsmouth has a lot of issues. I mean, you cover the news, and so you can see it. And so people say different things. I mean, I've been out into a lot of different communities. At the top of mountain, I want to say tolls and the impact that the tunnel tolls have had on our economic development for the city. People want safe communities. They're concerned about crime in the city. And probably the other thing would be education. You know, with the public school systems and making sure that we're accredited and that they're getting the funding that they deserve.
Well, let's talk more about a few of those issues. Gun crime you mentioned, but gun violence in general is a big issue for a lot of people. And it's a very divisive issue in the General Assembly, and whoever is elected is going to face votes on that coming up in the next session. What in your mind should be done about gun violence from a state level? Do you favor universal background checks, red flag laws? What are you in favor of?
Well, first off, I support the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. I think that those who have not lost their rights to have weapons and firearms should be able to do so. I also think that we have to crack down on illegal firearms, stolen firearms, and when it comes to mass shootings, we've got to work together to solve the issues. I was very disappointed, the abrupt adjournment that happened this summer, that it seemed like people didn't even want to have the discussions. They are tough conversations to have, but we have to look at the tough issues and we have to work together to solve them.
You raised the issue of economic development, and tolls is one issue for Portsmouth in particular, but another one is there's a lot of land that's not taxable because it's owned by the federal government. If you go to Richmond, what would you do to help economic development in Portsmouth?
Well, the first thing, is the tolls. If you look at the studies, even at the Dragus Center at ODU for Economic Development, Portsmouth's impacted more than any other city in Hampton Roads. It's 6 times more than Virginia Beach, and I think 4 times more than Suffolk. So when you look at the impact, of course, you know, the downtown corridor, Portsmouth is trying to revitalize. They have moved the courthouse. They're looking at relocating City Hall and the jail. And so if we're going to revitalize that area and we have the tolls, how can we best impact and grow?
So you would have a plan to remove the tolls, reduce the tolls? What would your plan be?
Well, in Portsmouth, in their legislative agenda last year, they wanted to fight for a complete buyout of the tolls. I don't know if that would be possible, but I am advocating for, on the New Jersey Turnpike, for example, they offer senior discounts. They offer military discounts. I don't know why we couldn't do that here. I don't know why we couldn't offer some sort of state tax income rebates for citizens, whether they live in Portsmouth or whether they're commuting from Virginia Beach to Chesapeake and they go through the tunnel every day. Could we offer some sort of state tax incentive for toll relief?
You also talk about schools. What at the state level could be done for schools in Portsmouth?
Well, we need to fully fund our schools. And that's the number one concern I know in real estate with home buyers. They want, people want good school districts.
But they also, the common answer is we're going to raise the personal property tax. Portsmouth already has a high personal property tax.
Correct. And so I would want to look at how we distribute the funds from a state level. Of course, with funding for our school systems comes from a local, state, and federal level. And so this allocation system for state funding has not been readdressed since 1980. That's before I was born. Jimmy Carter was the president at the time. And so things have changed in the last 40 years. And so, the way that we allocate the school funding is mostly impacted. Urban and rural school districts take the brunt of that. And so when we need to reevaluate and find something that's more fair.
Let's talk about a couple of health issues that have been in the news a lot lately. The opioid crisis, for one. A lot of states have filed lawsuits against the drug companies. There have been a few doctors who have been prosecuted for overprescribing them. What would be your answer to dealing with the opioid crisis?
It's a huge deal. In fact, 1 in 3 foster care cases in Virginia is affected by the opioid case. And it doesn't just impact, it's not one particular community that it impacts, it's everybody. It does not discriminate against race, color, creed, socioeconomic status. Governor Northam is leading a fight for that with physicians from abusing their powers, I guess, of dealing with prescribing the medications. And it's just something that we need to send more funds to, and for a fight that we can win.
So you would be in favor of prosecuting doctors who overprescribe?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about another thing. Vaping has become a big issue, particularly among young people. A lot of people are now calling it a health crisis. Number one, do you think it's a health crisis? And number two, is there something that can be done at the state level?
Well, I think that, clearly, it was proposed to us as a safe alternative to cigarettes, and whether that is or not, they've looked at the studies, and we've had several people dying. It's not something that I think is a positive habit, but I also don't want to impose on the rights of adults who are making adult decisions.
So you don't have any specific answer to it?
I don't know enough about the situation, as far as like the cases, and I have not read the medical reports, and I don't have any medical training. Clearly, we know that tobacco, is clearly linked to cancer, shorten of life, but I think it's one of those things that's not necessarily as safe as people were led to believe.
The House is narrowly divided, as you know. How do you think things would change if Democrats regain control?
Well, regardless of what happens in November, and it right now is a coin toss. Anything could happen. But we need leaders who want to work together. And so I am running as an independent, and I think that's awesome because I can take the best ideas from both sides and bring them back home to Portsmouth. I was so glad that Virginia came together finally this year in 2019 to pass health care reform with the Medicaid expansion and provide affordable health care to Virginians. And the big number they throw out is 400,000 people. And that sounds like a lot, but when you look at it, every one of those numbers has a name, and 6,000 of those names live right here in Portsmouth.
Let me give you a closing argument here as we wrap things up. Why are you a better candidate than your two opponents?
Well, I think that I've gotten a lot of support when I'm outdoor knocking, that people are excited to see somebody who's homegrown and that's running. And so I understand a lot of the issues of facing Portsmouth just a little differently because I'm actually from here. People are excited that I'm an independent, that I haven't taken big money from different political groups or from Dominion Power and some of the big monopolies. And they're excited that somebody's running who's not a puppet, who's going to stand up for the people and put the people first.
Well, Ryan Benton, independent candidate in the 80th House District, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.